So concerning the Academy Awards, at first I thought that the Weinstein was behind the whole thing, but it doesn't seem the case, right? Or were they really involved in the whole strategy of communication for the Academy Awards, or not at all?
That was really Paramount. Paramount, yeah, that was Paramount's the Oscar campaign was Paramount's campaign. I mean, Harvey and those guys were very supportive, but they obviously had their own.
and Ryan Kavanaugh. Ryan Kavanaugh supported the Oscar campaign heavily.
Yeah, very true.
So, did you make a choice about who to push? Because when you have 7 nominations, then did you discuss and say, okay, we feel that we have a greater chance to win, best directing or best actor or stuff like that, or you pushed for all the 7 at the same time?
Well, our job was basically to make sure people saw the movie. So, we would continually just make sure that our friends and anyone who could vote, would vote, or even didn't vote was just watching the movie, because when people saw the movie, they generally really loved it, and then they would tell other people. So I guess when you're looking at a campaign strategically, there might have been ebbs and flows into who was a front runner, who wasn't a front runner, but Paramount and Relativity really did a great job in kind of pushing everything forward, so that the entire movie, all the actors, the director, and all the craftspeople kind of felt unilaterally loved.
But I think basically when you're doing a campaign like that, I think all the films are really trying to sell the actors, the director, and the picture. I think that tends to be everybody's focus, because that's what gets interest out there.
Okay. So going back to Paramount, Relativity Media, and this whole thing. So you went to Relativity Media, or Paramount passed to?
We did.
Yeah, we did.
We did.
Concerning the director, I have a theory about why you picked him. My theory that you watched the Lily Tamkin episode, during your I Love Huckabees, and because of his ability, to fight, this is why you picked him. Was that the case?
We were talking to 3 or 4 directors at the time that we were talking to David, and had interest in a couple of them. But Scott Silver, who was writing at the time, was a huge fan of David Russell's and was supporting and pushing him. And Mark Wahlberg, who was our partner at the time, had made 2 other movies with him. So he was a big fan, and he was supporting David. Todd and I met with David, loved what he had to say, and despite the shenanigans or the controversy about him, we basically thought he was the best director for the film.
Can you tell me who was the 2 others?
I don't even remember. I can't remember their names. I remember that. I just can't remember the names.
Walter Salles was one of them.
Oh, right. Walter Salles and the other guy.
Andrew Dominic.
Andrew Dominic. Those were the 2 front runners.
So how was the experience working with David O. Russell? And by the way, I love David O. Russell.
Yeah, he was amazing. I mean, the thing he brought, when he originally came to us and told us the story he wanted to tell, what you see on the screen is the story he wanted to tell, which is he really brought to the forefront of this the love story, the Amy Adams character that was a lot more fleshed out in his version of the movie, and kind of a sense of levity to the story, which balancing the tone that is in The Fighter is something really unique, and something that David Russell is probably the only one who could do, because in a story that is so tough and at times dark, to be able to laugh during the course of that, I think, is a trick that he really pulled off in an amazing way. So he was phenomenal. He was a great partner. We had a really good time with him.
Very collaborative. For us, it was both of us a great experience because of his collaborative nature, and was willing to entertain any ideas, thoughts, creative aspects to both the script and during shooting. So it was very satisfying for us.
I was under the impression that David would try to push for his own projects. So how did that happen with him? You know, he was who presented him the script?
Mark.
Yeah, I think Mark originally had given it to him.
Right.
I think as a consultant, he kind of wanted to. He had given it to him as a friend, as we all do. We give to our friends and say, "What do you think about this?" And I think David was telling him some things he thought, and Mark said, "Well, those are actually pretty good ideas." So he called us and he said, "You should really meet with him."
Ah, great.
And clearly his projects weren't at the point of being ready to be made, so it was, you know, it was time for him to make another movie.
So then, you know, when you started working with him, so you know, in France, the director is the god, and he's making all the decisions, and you know, has the final cut, etc., which is driving all the producers crazy. But this is well, you know, this is how it works. But actually, it's not really true. You know, in France, the rule is that the director and the producer must agree on the cut. So it's not the director who has a final cut. It's a shared final cut. That's the law. How did the creative discussions work with David? You know, in general. So on the shoot, during the editing, you know, casting, etc., etc.
It was, I have nothing bad or negative to say. It was the casting. He, you know, everybody he wanted to cast, from the sisters to everybody else, he ran by us. We both, Todd and myself and David, we worked really hard on the script together, giving him notes, and he was extremely collaborative. And on the set, you know, we both come to the set and with ideas and thoughts, and are sitting right by him and whispering things in his ear, and he was amenable to virtually anything we wanted to try or suggest. So it was, you know, you get that, you're able to do that a lot with directors, but not at times one's as talented as David Russell. So it was really very, very satisfying and enjoyable working with him.
And it was a unique situation, really, in that we had gotten the funding for the movie shortly before we were supposed to start, and we were doing some, you know, significant development to the script. So everything from the moment that Relativity said they were going to make the movie all the way through production was a little bit of run and gun. So there were lots of creative thoughts flowing around, lots of ideas, lots of meetings, and when we got to set, we didn't have a lot of time to shoot the movie. It was, at least for a studio-style movie that we wanted to make, we had 33 days to shoot it.
33 days?
Yeah, for the entire movie. And so everything, you know, we never laid down a dolly track, we never put the camera on sticks. It was always, we were either on a steady cam or a handheld, and it was a free-flowing creative environment, where one that was, as David was saying, just a complete collaboration with the director, and always throwing around ideas. And he's got tons and tons and tons of ideas, and we were able to execute all of them in that amount of time, which was kind of astounding.
Did you shoot with one camera all the time, or two cameras, three cameras?
It was generally one camera, but when we shot the fight footage, which David can talk more about because he was there, I wasn't. We had multiple cameras. There were 8 or 10 cameras going.
And you were always on the set, one of you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the entire shoot, and we were both, we were both always there for development and always there for the editing.
So for the editing, for instance, you know, how did that work? Did you let David do a first cut, and then you came in, or you were sitting with him at the editing room all the way, or how did that work?
He did his first cut and brought us in, and then we did some work on it, and then we had a preview, and then Relativity gave us their notes. And we had a long editorial process. We did some additional shooting for like 2 or 3 days in the middle of post. We had, I think, 3 previews, but then we had, David likes to put the movie in front of audiences a lot, so we had very small little screenings for friends and family and so forth. We must have had about 8 of those, just for to look at very little things as well as larger things that we were doing.
So how many of these screenings were actual test screenings?
I think we did 3.
We did 3 of them. Yeah, we had two I think prior to our additional shooting, and then 1 after it. So
did you see a significant increase in the boxes, or on the third test screening?
We saw. I mean, it's a funny thing because the women in the very beginning scored higher than the men, and the teen males were one of the lowest. So a lot of what we did was to try to bring up male teens and make it more appealing to men. So we shot some additional fight footage, and we shot that sort of training sequence that they do to give it, some more male flavor.
Yeah, but we were actually surprised a little bit. All the scores across the board were all very high. It's just that the female scores were slightly higher than the male scores, and you would think going into a movie called The Fighter that's about boxing, you would expect the male scores to be higher. But because the movie is so much about family and it's so much about kind of relationships, when in retrospect, it isn't that surprising.
Okay, but the test screening, it's very interesting, but the problem is that you are dealing with the audience that is coming to the theater. So, for instance, you can have a movie that women might not want to see, but when they are in the theater, they actually enjoy it. So, was it the case for The Fighter?
That was a challenge, and it's one of the reasons we explored changing the title of the film, because we thought that it would be very difficult to get women in to see this film with that title. And in fact, it probably was, but we couldn't come up with something else we liked. So what we had to do was make our advertising friendly to women and look more at the love story and the family stuff to pique their interest to bring them in.
Also,
and show Mark's body a lot. That helped too.